The number one thing that across all industries, across all personalities, that determines whether or not you're a success in business and sales is grit. Any good thing takes time and failure to become an expert at it. When you get pushed up against a wall, what do? You go flight or fight or quit. Like, what is your mode? If you can't dig in and light a fire under your butt and go after it and make things happen and have confidence doing it and without the commission breath, you're gonna have a really hard time. Well, hello there, my wife.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
I'm excited to finally get some of your story on video because I think that you have a lot of really great things to share with the world and a lot of stuff that people actually don't know about you that might want to know about you. So
Okay.
I have been privileged over many, many years to hear so many people talk about how you have influenced them with regard to their sales ability and many people that you have taught from scratch to being pretty incredible salespeople. And you have a lot to teach. And so hopefully I can ask you some questions that will bring out parts of your story that I think are really great and important, and people might even might surprise some people and might connect with some people, really encourage them.
Okay.
So
Give it a whirl.
Yeah. So I asked you a question yesterday, I believe, that your answer actually really surprised me. And I kind of stopped you because I didn't want you to get too far into it because I realized, oh, that's actually a really great question to start with. So I kind of assumed and asked the question about you being a natural born salesman. And I asked you, do you feel like you're a natural born salesman? Because I think people would look at you and say, oh, you were born with it. And I actually thought that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't believe there's such a thing as a natural born salesman. In fact, the people that they usually talk about like that is the whole gift of gab thing. Mm-hmm. That is not good for sales. Selling is not telling, it's asking the right questions. And people that have that gift of gab, they need to curb that because they talk too much. So I'm naturally introverted. I'm a go-getter, a leader. I want to win. But the whole extroverted social butterfly thing that some salespeople have, I am not that person. I'm a get in the corner of a room, talk to one person, and if I don't know anyone at the party, I'm very uncomfortable. And so when I'm dealing with people, because I don't tend to talk a lot, I just ask questions and get to know them. And really, sales at its core is the successful transference of belief and enthusiasm. And if you're asking questions, you're identifying people's wants, needs, and desires, getting to know them, and then you're just creating solutions to their problems. They go with you because they trust you. And so be honest, be transparent, and solve problems.
So how do you, when you have a salesman that you're trying to train, and they do have that gift of gab and they like to share, or maybe they feel like they need to prove to the customer that they know what they're talking about.
Sure.
What do you say to them to help them realize that that's actually not helping them, that's hurting them, in order to maybe curb their natural bent to talk? Because I can sometimes be that kind of person. And so in the absence of talking, you kind of lose control, right? You're not able to dictate or steer the conversation, which can be very uncomfortable. So how do you teach a person like that to do what that is not natural for them?
Yeah, when you're talking a lot, you can come off as nervous, and the perception of the customer is that the whole needing to prove yourself is a lack of confidence. And so confidence in yourself builds trust with the customer. So if you're talking a lot, you might be talking yourself right out of a sale. And so what I encourage people to do is when they first show up to be genuine, to have a great attitude, smile, show gratitude, and you should be grateful that you're there. And normally when you are grateful to be there, the atmosphere changes. And if you can provide a sincere compliment, not some flattery, thing, but if you can, if you're walking into a home and it's a beautiful home, or if you're walking into a crappy home but it's a quiet neighborhood because it's a single wide trailer full of junk, Well, wow, this is a really quiet neighborhood. And then we're gonna go sit at the kitchen table, and I'm gonna spend usually about 15 minutes and just asking questions about them. There's very few people that there's an exception to. There's the CEO type drivers that are not going to have that, but most people, they're okay with you asking questions about them. I use an acronym just to kind of guide myself through it, and it's called FORM: family, occupation, recreation, and material possessions. Those are topics, not in that order, but topics of breaking the ice and getting to know them. And then I try to gain information while I'm talking to them, because what they tell me is going to tell me a lot about how to communicate with them. So I might say, "Hey, this is a beautiful home. Have you been here long?" And they say, "Oh, I've been here for 2 years." "No kidding. Where do you come from? You from town, or are you from out of town?" "Oh, I'm from out of town." "What brought you here?" And then they tell me work or spouse or whatever it is. And if they say work, I might say, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And that tells me a lot. I really want to get to the topic of what they do for a living, because I'm going to communicate extremely differently with an engineer at Raytheon or an artist that is here and they're painting their artwork or whatever they're doing. Totally different conversations. If I'm dealing with a grandma who was a housewife her whole life versus a older lady that was a business owner, very different conversations. And so you've got to ask the right questions, get to know them. And people really, they want to know you care. You want to show confidence. They want to know you care, and that's how I try to train people. And if they're talking too much, I say you need to stop talking and ask more questions. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting to me, because I'm obviously very used to interacting directly with you, and you know how to communicate with me, but. Yep. Hearing you say you would talk very different to an engineer versus an artist, I can imagine how you would talk to an engineer. Yeah. How would you talk to an artist?
So,
because that's not something that that's not normal for you.
That is not normal for me. And for those of you that don't know, I have more of the mind of an engineer, so I can really dig into that and geek out on the engineering of all of this stuff. And that confidence builds trust. And usually I get those sales with engineers. A lot of salespeople hate dealing with engineers because of the amount of details they need. I'm oriented in that direction, so that's great for me. An artist, on the other hand, is a little bit different, right? So let's say that they paint or they're a sculptor or something like that. I'm going to veer away from the heavy detail. I'm probably going to pull up some pictures of my great uncle, who was a famous artist, and I'm saying, "Hey, check this out. Have you heard of this guy? Have you been to DC and seen this sculpture?" And just really talk about art. And if someone is, let's say I had a guy who was really into scuba diving. Well, we're going to talk about that. Or they just moved to town and they've been sailing for the last 20 years and they finally decided to settle down. We're going to talk all about sailing. So, and then I'm just not going to do as much detail. Then you have the CEO type that I was mentioning earlier, and they're going to be looking at their watch and tapping their fingers if I'm getting too much into detail. So I'm going to raise my tone to a more direct tone, and I'm going to talk faster, because if you're not talking faster, you're wasting their time if there's a lot of dead space, and they're getting ready to kick you out.
So speaking of being kicked out, is there a story you can think of? I know that over the last 20 years, there have been many times you've been kicked out of a house. Yeah. In fact, I've heard that if you haven't been kicked out of a number of houses, then you're actually not trying hard enough. But can you think of a story or two where you were kicked out?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So my least favorite type of customer is one that is that CEO type, and I'm trying to explain things because I have that engineering bent, and they're just like, "I don't care, give me the price." I'm like, "Absolutely, I'm going to do that for you. There's some things that I need to figure out first before I can provide you a price." And there was one where I was just trying to do that over and over, and he was just like, "Cut the F and BS and tell me what the price is." And I closed my laptop and said, "If that's what you want, here's the range. If that's all you want, I've got nothing else for you." Because what you're looking for is just a price. And if you're going with the cheapest guy, we're not the right company for you. So go find your high-end product from the cheapest guy, and we're not it. So I essentially got kicked out of the house. I had someone else, another person on my team, call them to see if someone else could get back in the door. They were just done. And so I could have definitely dealt with that differently, and just got up and started to look at everything so that I could provide him a price rather than try to stand my ground with that very strong personality. And then you got two strong personalities going at it, and there goes the deal.
So what personality type of a salesman do you think would have actually probably naturally done that better than you did?
The same type of personality, if they could match energy. So that person wants you to talk a lot less, find out a little bit of information, and then get to work and give them the information they want as fast as possible. This particular guy, he was a retired CEO and had been used to telling people what to do for a living and commanding them around. And I just was not dealing with that well. I don't like people telling me what to do.
So it is probably rooted deeply in your childhood or something, right?
Something.
So, well, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about that because you have maybe a little bit of an interesting story when it comes to that. You have been doing pretty advanced, or I should say advanced as far as successful sales since you were a child.
Yeah.
So you got your start actually when you were what age?
Oh man, that would have been probably fourth grade, fifth grade.
So 9 or 10 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. What were you doing and why?
Yeah, so growing up in church, the church would do fundraisers, and they would bring in, candy bars, and you have magazines that you can choose stuff out of if you sell enough of the candy bars. So I was like, well, I can get my stereo that I want, or the bike that I want, or the TV, right? All these little prizes, and they were graded, and you got 2 to 4 weeks depending on the candy sale to do that. And so I actually got my parents to drop me off. I grew up in a small town in a big area, but we still had like the local meat market, right? So I'd get them to drop me off after school at the local meat market with the candy bar boxes, and I would stand there until I ran out of candy, and I would go use the payphone back then and call my parents to come and get me. So
at 10 years old, you were just alone in front of a meat market slinging candy bars.
Yep, holding my candy bars and just getting it out there and talking to people that are trying to walk by and go do their grocery shopping. Would you like to buy a candy bar? Would you like to buy a candy bar? Would you like to buy a candy bar? Over and over again. And with that, every single candy sale competition that went, I was by far and away selling more than anyone else. Not because I was like, I knew any, I was just asking, would you like to buy a candy bar? And other people weren't putting the work in.
So can you tell me a little bit about what you learned in that process? Because you start by asking, do you want a candy bar? But it turns into more questions when you engage in conversation, and you had to actually learn how to sell a little bit.
With the candy? Well, in some ways. There's not a whole lot of sales going on when people are trying to walk by you to do their grocery shopping. What I learned was that as I would start to get frustrated, I would finally, when I'm like, this sucks, I'm so done, I'd finally get a sale. And then I started to count, right? Okay, I'm asking, would you like to buy a candy bar? And over time, what I found is that every 10 or so people, I would get at least one person that would buy $1 for some world's finest chocolate, right? And here's $1. Some people I found were like, I don't eat chocolate, here's $1. They would just give me $1 and say, you can give it to someone else if you want, right? But let's say I would get to 20 people and I didn't get a yes. And I'm like, okay, but then I would get 2 yeses. So it always really averaged out. And I'd sit there from right after school, and if I didn't sell through my boxes, I was there at 9 o'clock at night when they're closing down, and then I usually ran through a whole bunch of boxes. I mean, I've sold, the most was, I think, 1,300 candy bars in 3 weeks. So
wow.
I'd go through easily 90 a day was the average.
Would you say that at a young age that built up your confidence?
Confidence, yeah, I would say. It also taught me that all failure leads to success. Like if you're getting a whole bunch of no's, your success is built on a foundation of failure, and it really is a numbers game. So you want the numbers to be higher. You want your percentages for advanced sales to be higher. But really, if you put the work in and you fail enough, you build success and confidence, and you build on that, then your numbers get better. You got to put the work in, though.
And you learn. Even I'm imagining that on the last day of your candy sales versus the first day, you were probably much better at what you did.
There again, there's not a whole lot to it. I learned how to deal with rejection, and I learned to have confidence. But as far as strategy of sales, that's not a thing. Would you like to buy a candy bar?
Right. So those two things that you mentioned, how important are those in sales?
Oh, 100%. If you can't handle rejection, you're not going to get very far. You need to be able to deal with that. A lot of salespeople, myself included, I can get on an emotional roller coaster if there's lots of rejection over time. But if you're having those steering wheel conversations as you leave, and you're adjusting and tweaking, and you're listening to if you're recording, you're listening to how you're going about doing it, you're going to be a lot better going forward. And any good thing takes time and failure to become an expert at it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've watched you do that for 20 years.
Yeah.
You, at no point are you satisfied with where you're at. At no point do you think that you have arrived and you have become the best version of yourself with regard to sales. So I see you after calls where you'll say, oh, I could have done this better, or realizing even, oh, if I had done this instead of this, and talking to your sales guys afterward. After their calls, they'll call you and you'll say, you should have done this, or call them back and say this. And you're always wanting to improve, and the best is never even good enough. So
if I'm closing at 100% always, then I have arrived. Until then, because that will never happen, always learning, always growing, and coaching helps too. Helping, when they call me after they're leaving a call, if they went through and they got the sale, it's less valuable than them calling me, hey, I didn't get it, here's what I did. And I'll try to dig into what did you say? What did they say? Okay, here's what I would have done in that scenario. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you say that you've never hit 100%, but there was a window of time where you were pretty much closing 100%. Can you tell a little bit about that time and what in you as a salesman was different that made that happen?
Yeah, I've had a couple windows of time where that happened, and it's usually, they say there's a term called commission breath, and it's when you seem desperate. I don't tend to put that off. When I have a desperate situation, I dig into it's go time. Like it's time to be a warrior. It's time to dig in and make things happen. And that's for both times that I had these long streaks of 100% closing. It was go time. It was at the beginning of starting a business. And then there was the next time where the business was getting ready to fail. We had tried to expand into another market. It wasn't working. And then the person I put in charge of the other market, it was not going well. I had to let them go. I had to basically take all the sales guys' calls, and I went on all of the calls for a window of times because they were not closing. And I went out there and I dug in and got us out of the hole that we were in. And
So warrior mode.
Warrior mode. Yeah.
Warrior mode. I love it. Do you think that is what creates warrior mode? And do you think every man has the capacity to become a warrior when it comes to sales?
The ability, yes. When you get pushed up against a wall, what do? You go flight or fight or quit? Like, what is your mode? When I get shoved up against the wall, I'm fighting, right? Some people, they get hit, they're on the ground, and they roll over and wet on themselves, like a whipped dog. They should not be in sales. If you can't dig in and light a fire under your butt and go after it and make things happen and have confidence doing it and without the commission breath, you're going to have a really hard time. I was listening to, it was either a podcast or a book. Actually, there's a book specifically written about it called Grit. The number one thing that they, across all industries, across all personalities, that determines whether or not you're a success in business and sales is grit, which is just how much pain can you deal with and dig and fight and change and grow and get through that.
Without ever giving up.
Yep.
Right. So when I hear you say things like that, and when I think someone who doesn't know you hears you say things like that, they might just assume that you've always been that way, that confidence maybe comes natural. Can you share a little bit about a time in your life when you were younger, when your self-confidence would have really, really been challenged?
Yeah. So I grew up going to a very small private school just at the church I went to. There was like 6 people in my class. Had that that core group of friends, and with 6 people, that's who you hang out with them, and then the grades below you. And then I left that school and went to a larger school, and for one reason or another, there was a girl that decided she didn't like me, and she was the popular girl, and basically got me to where I was the little outcast. And it wasn't so bad the 6th grade year, but it got worse. Middle school sucks anyway, right? So when you become an outsider at that age, it really was hard, right? So I would usually sit by myself at lunch, and I'd get made fun of a lot. And it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade where that was happening, and it was really impactful and sad. I just became more introverted so that I didn't get made fun of. Right? I'm just gonna go over here, and now I can't say anything. Yeah.
So what I know about young people and personal experience too is that those years, specifically middle school and early high school, are really formative years.
Yeah.
And really impact your identity and your view of yourself, which then that ripple effect can turn into really the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me that during that time, that very easily the story about who you are and your value you could have viewed it as written,
Yeah.
and so when I look at you and I know your story as an adult, it doesn't even make sense that happened to you when you were young, because that destroys
Yeah.
a lot of people. So what's in there? What's in you that years of rejection and bullying essentially didn't destroy you?
It's interesting that I'm contemplating the years. The same years that I was in that was also some of the years where I was selling candy bars.
Yeah.
So I never really thought about that before, but I had these successes over here. And probably 7th grade, where some of this stuff was the worst, was the time where I won the biggest candy sale was for the soccer team. And I won a trip to Disneyland for my whole family. And the kid that had normally won that every year is I was trying soccer, right? So it was 1 year of doing soccer, never did it again. And during that year, I had the kids on the soccer team saying, "Did you join just so that you could do the candy sale?" Right? Because this other kid always won, and I came in and he wasn't even half of the amount that I was. That was when I sold the 1,300 in a few weeks. And so just contemplating that timeline is overlap. That's really interesting. So rejection at school, rejection from all of these customers, right? And then finding the successes over time, delayed gratification. And I can't put it past, like, part of the encouragement from particularly my mom saying, you're special, you're meant for something big. Because when I was 18 months old, my family was traveling across the country from the East Coast to West Coast. They stayed at a friend's house, and evidently one of the screens was broken. And they think that I was chasing a kitty cat out the screen and onto the roof, and I actually fell from the 2-story window down, and there was a little patch of dirt about, I think they say about 2 by 2, and then concrete all around. And I cracked my head in half. The skin didn't break, but cracked the head in half, broke the collarbone, and very easily, if just inches to the side, could have died. And my mom would say, "You have a purpose. There's huge meaning in your life, because God saved you from dying when you were 18 months old. There is reason." And so her saying that through my whole life probably had a huge impact as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you go from this very small school where you have been completely ostracized, and now you're going to go into a huge public high school setting. That had to have been crazy intimidating for you from your 9th grade to 10th grade year. So what happened? How did your story change?
So it was not intimidating. I was very excited to get away from the jerks that were bullying me at this small private school. And growing up, I was a swimmer, right? So from the age of 5, I was on swim team. And while I was at this small private school, they didn't have a swim team. So a number of things were going on that allowed me to convince my parents to leave the private school they had me at. One is they were just broke, ran out of money, and they were having a real hard time. So when I was like, hey, I really want to join the swim team and go to a public high school, they looked at each other, were like, we can't really afford to have you at this school anyway. So that made it to where I could go there. But I was just excited to get away from the bullying and get to where I could do my sport, right? The experience, on the other hand, was really unique. So we're talking about going from freshman year to sophomore year. And because I was a swimmer, one of the things I planned on doing in the summers is I was going to go be a lifeguard, right? So when I was 14, I worked in a warehouse stocking shelves for $4.25 an hour. And I was saving up enough money because my parents wouldn't buy me the lifeguarding class, so that by the time I was 15, I saved up and I could afford to pay for the lifeguarding class. So now we're in the freshman year summer. I'm doing the lifeguarding class, and there's other people in the class, and I didn't know this, but I became friends with some of the popular girls that were going to be at this school. They were already on the swim team, and they knew everybody. So I didn't know that during lifeguarding. We're just hanging out and doing the training, getting certified. But then when I show up on the first day of school, they're like, hey, Andrew, come here. And they just introduced me to everybody. So I went from being off in the corner being bullied to they just kind of pulled me in. And now everybody knows the fresh meat guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around, everyone's saying, hey, Andrew. And I can't remember everybody's name. It's a big school. So radical shift in what happened going into sophomore year.
So how do you deal with that internally? Like, that was your first day of school experience. What's the second day of school like? Do you go in and now you're like, things are different? I'm confident now?
No. Mm-hmm. I had been emotionally beat up for a long time, and I've built habits now of being introverted and just kind of awkward. Mm-hmm. And even meeting you when I
I know the awkward.
Super awkward, right? So I don't know if I ever fixed what happened with that awkward and kind of being outcast, but I went there, and then everyone viewed me differently. And because I was now introverted and quiet and didn't want to get made fun of, it was a very different view that all the new classmates had. And I only found this because at a reunion 10 years later, you're talking to some of the people I went to school with, and they were like, no, this was my impression of you. Mm-hmm. And when you first came to school, you just kind of, you were quiet, and we perceived you as cocky, right? Because you had everyone saying hi to you, and you were just kind of like, didn't know how to deal with that.
You were used to being ignored, not anybody paying any attention to you.
And so super interesting that perception of me being quiet and not wanting to get bullied and made fun of, what caused other people to see me around and say, oh, he's cocky, right?
So there's a story that you shared with me not long ago that really made an impression, because knowing your history of being bullied and what had happened to you, when you shared this story, I just thought to myself, how could someone with that history still have that level of confidence? How was that not emotionally beaten out of you over the years? And it was a story in the locker room. Okay. So tell this story about what happened.
Yeah.
And what you did and who it was. And then I think it just illustrates perfectly the level of confidence you have to do what you did. That was essentially really dumb.
Yeah. So, So I will start with this. all the way through I hit puberty really late. Okay, so I'm small.
So you're the tiny guy.
I'm the tiny guy. I'm still going into sophomore year, and I'm just I don't weigh very much. I'm a small guy. I didn't just join the swim team. I also joined the water polo team. If you're from California, you know what that is. If you're not, I don't know if it's not.
Maybe you saw it in the
many
Olympics.
States. Yeah, it is an Olympic sport. It's also the sport of some countries. Like it's their national sport. But California, water polo is big. I'd never played before. I joined the team sophomore year because I'm a swimmer. I'm like, hey, this is perfect. And I did that the whole time. But one day, and I don't even know what caused it. I think he was just being a jerk. I had a guy, so if you know water polo, the person that's in what they call the hole is usually the biggest, strongest guy on the team because he's got a guy on his back while he's the closest to the goal right in the middle, and he basically has a guy trying to drown him when he gets past the ball and tries to shoot it into the hole. And so that guy in the locker room one day decides, I don't know
And he's the biggest guy in the whole team.
He's a monster. If I showed you a picture of him,
We'll
next to
show a
me at
picture.
that-
We
yeah.
will show a picture because it illustrates.
Ridiculous. It's I'm a small still, and this guy's a monster, and he's at least a grade, probably 2 grades ahead of me, and for whatever reason he like pushes me, so he shoves me up again. I slam against the wall, and I look at him like, don't do that again, and he does it again.
And you're looking straight up.
Looking up at this.
You're looking straight up
guy.
at this massive human.
Yeah. And he basically is like, I don't know what he was thinking, but he shoved me against the wall again, probably because I told him not to. And I come push off the wall and I punch it. I'm left-handed, so I hit him right in the jaw.
You like Superman punched this giant.
No, I don't know how to fight. Okay, I know jujitsu. I did not know how to punch. Obviously, because I punched this guy and he goes and just looks back at me, and I'm like, oh crap.
Right.
I just punched this giant guy, and he just turned his head and looks right back at me
Yes.
like it
like
didn't
what you
faze
see
him.
in the movies.
Yeah. It's
Except for it
comical.
happened in real life. Yes.
Right. And so he proceeds to punch me, and I just put my hands up, and I curl into a ball on the floor, and he kicks me a few times, and then
And you just,
he walks away.
yeah,
Like,
you know that's your only option is to.
Yeah. I'm like, oh crap, I just hit this giant man, and I'm in trouble. So that's
So
all.
what possesses a tiny person to just attack someone easily 4 times their size? I don't know.
4 times is a bit much.
Okay,
That's
3.
like, he's a big dude. But just something about when I say don't do that again, and then you're gonna do it anyway, I'm not gonna take that lying down until I have to, and I'm in a ball on
Yes.
the floor. But I don't know. I've multiple times in my life I have just said, hey, if you do that again, this is what's going to happen, and that's what if they do it again, it's going down.
So when I hear you talk about in sales that when anyone gets pushed up against a wall, what there's fight, you either fight, you flight, or you
Quit.
quit, right? So that of course made me think of that story. And here you are, this tiny little guy, playing water polo against this hulk of a man who's probably 16.
He was on my team.
He was on your team,
yeah.
so he was, but he was probably a little bit older than you, but a lot bigger than you.
Yeah.
And this man shoved you,
When you
He
see
was
the
a
picture,
man.
he was a man.
he was a man.
He was,
But he shoved you
Yeah.
against the lockers twice.
yeah.
And I guess it's situations like that, especially as a man of any age, right? Because you could have probably been 4 or 5 years old and you would have reacted the same way
Yeah, for sure.
at every point in your life. And you could probably be a crippled old man. And if someone pushes you up against a wall, what are you going to do?
Crippled old man? I don't know.
You'd have to be really old, obviously.
I would
a deathbed. Someone pushes you
verbally-
up against a headboard and you're going to fight.
I would verbally assault them.
Right. Right. But that is born into you. You may not believe in a natural born salesman, but those character traits, that kind of warrior mode, that is innate in you, right? No one had to teach you that.
No. I don't know where it came from, so it must have been.
Well, as
just
your
that.
wife, I can say I can't train it out of you.
Right.
I have tried. I
Yeah.
have tried, and I cannot change this in
Hey,
you.
I pick my towels up off the floor now. You trained me. Just with most things, I'm untrainable.
I
Not
would
all.
actually say That's not true.
That I'm trainable?
I'm constantly picking your towels. so, so no, you may have improved, but
So much better. Well, you made me start using a towel.
okay, yes. Yes, this
why
man,
can't I just air dry?
this
Better,
man-
I don't want to iron clothes. Just throw the clothes on while I'm still wet.
This
The
is the
wrinkles
truth.
come out.
That's what he did. Doesn't believe in an iron. Neither do I, but I'll use the dryer. But this man would just, in Arizona, take a shower and just put his clothes on, dripping wet.
Be dry in 10 minutes.
Dry in
Just
10
super
minutes and
fast.
unwrinkled. Like that was his version of a dryer.
Which also means no need to fold clothes. You throw them in a bucket.
This is true.
In the genre of clothes.
Genre.
Okay, these are shirts. These are shorts, pants, right? Pull them out all wrinkle balled. Throw them on wet. Done. Because Arizona. Florida,
Right.
not so much.
Right. Right. So you just have to live in a dry state.
That's it.
For the rest of your life or else, right?
Or iron, which.
No, neither one of us are going to ever do that.
Yeah.
No. So I love it. So another story, our children love hearing stories about their daddy when he was in high school, especially from his best friend. So
Oh, my
every
goodness,
time
yeah.
we're around his high school best friend, they are basically like, Uncle Chris, which is funny because he has a brother named Chris. So they actually have an Uncle Chris, but
Yeah.
they call his best friend from high school Uncle Chris anyway.
Yeah.
And every time that we're with, it doesn't matter how many times they've heard the same stories over and over again. They say, tell us about our daddy in high school, because they love hearing the stories. So I am just sorry that I'm asking you these stories because they're not nearly as entertaining as when
My buddy Chris, he's a good
He's a good storyteller.
Lots of animation and detail.
he is. But he would tell some stories about some interesting altercations. I call them an altercation. Someone else
Sure.
might call them a fight, schoolyard fight. I don't know. But it was very interesting how you come into this school,
Yeah.
right? And you're the new kid and you're quiet and shy, perceived as cocky. And you have all these popular girls, which I'm assuming were probably really pretty too.
Sure, yeah.
All these pretty
A lot
popular
of them were on
girls.
swim team, so it kind of
Right.
just yep.
And they're toting you around as their new friend, which I can imagine that the guys at the school probably were not super excited about the new guy.
Yeah,
Right.
those two things had nothing to do with each other, right?
Okay.
So being introduced in the first phase to everybody versus years later, where the fights were happening, two totally different things. By that time, I had gotten my core group of friends. Those girls were not in my core group of friends. They were part of the swim team and others. I was friends with everybody in all different styles and groups. But I really had a core group of 6 or 7 guys that I hung out with.
So you're not the fighting type in the sense that you're never one to pick a fight.
Right.
You're never trying to get into a fight with anybody. Yet you had a number of high school fights.
Yeah.
That our kids love to hear about.
So
how does that happen? You go from a piece. You're not trying to fight anybody.
Yeah.
And at that point, you never had before, right? So you didn't even know if you could even throw a punch. And actually, the punch that you did throw, right?
Yeah.
It maybe landed, but it didn't seem to matter on Hulkman.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, in order to answer that, you've got to picture who I was in high school, and maybe we'll pull some pictures into this. I don't know. But I was tan, surfer guy look, wearing Hawaiian shirts. I always had my Birkenstocks on, or I'd have like flowered board shorts and a wife beater with my Birkenstocks. So
In your long blonde hair.
Yeah. I'm trying to be friends with everybody, but then you get the bully type in the schools that are, they're jerks. I don't know if they had a crappy childhood or what was going on, but there were guys that had a reputation for fighting, and there was a group of them that were all friends that just decided that they didn't like me.
Once again, here we have a group of people deciding that they don't like poor Andrew.
But much bigger school. I wasn't the outcast now, right? And
You had started to hit puberty too by this point?
Yeah, I got a little muscle on me from
bit?
swimming.
Okay.
So that was good. Still small, but toned and strong. And actually the same kind of thing happened. So this is my senior year now. So all these things happened in the senior year for the fights. And this group of guys just decided they didn't like me. I had a couple of them. I was doing musical theater. And
Which is interesting to imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, because
yeah.
I've heard you sing.
Hey,
You weren't in you please tell me you were not in a singing role.
it's musical theater.
Everyone
in a singing
sings.
role.
Right, okay.
I was not in the front. I'm
Okay,
chorus, right?
okay.
So I can, yeah. I was there for the fun of it.
Yes.
So
And the eyeliner.
yeah, sure.
Also, we have pictures.
I have pictures of me with a fake beard and some
Yes.
eyeliner and all the makeup that goes along with being on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I only did that my senior year, but I was friends with a lot of the drama people before then. And so I do this senior year, and a couple of these jerk guys are in the class. And actually, same kind of thing happened where he got, I don't know what it was. It looked like a cricket paddle, some large piece of wood that he was swinging in my direction, and like just being a jerk, like threatening.
You're
to
in
hit.
a classroom.
No, you're in an area where it has seating and a stage, and it was the drama classroom, but it was a theater room, and so smaller theater room, and we're on stage. I don't know if it was between whatever, but he was doing this, and I told him to stop.
Here we go again, right?
Yeah. I'm
guessing
do not do that again.
I'm guessing he did it again.
He did it again.
Yeah.
And so I basically, as he swung, as he was out this way, I come into the swing so he can't hit me, grab it and grab him by the throat and shove him up against the wall.
Oh, okay.
And then his friends started to come in, and I did the same thing to them. So
Now,
now,
this looks like a scene out of a movie in my head.
So these guys are smaller than me, right? And I'm not trying to start a fight, but I told you not to do it. Don't do it again. So I got both of these guys up against the wall, and I push away, and they realized I'm much stronger than they were and bigger, and I just kind of let it go. Well, they were in this group of guys, and that's why they were being jerks to me. So the guy that was the most known fighter in the group he's mouthing off to everybody in school and telling them he's going to beat me up. So.
And you're hearing this, and what are you thinking? Are you scared? You scared?
I'm like, if this is going to go down, it's going to go down. So I was with my group of friends, not fighters, right? Swimmers and just nice guys. And you got these guys that are, or a couple of guys in this group that are known for getting in fights all the time. So I just, I'm walking around at lunch, high adrenaline, always have my head on a swivel for weeks. And then finally, it goes to lunchtime, and he walks up to me with his group of friends, and he's like, let's go. We're on an open campus, right? So we would always leave for lunch and go to nearby. There were different stores and stuff. I'd get hot dogs or burritos or whatever, and you just leave campus for lunch, and then you come back. They don't have it that way anymore. But he comes up to me right at the beginning of lunch, and he's like, let's go, right? I'm like, okay. I had been planning on it. I pull my backpack off, hand it to my friend Justin, and we proceed to walk off campus. Right? So, because we don't want to get caught. We don't get suspended, but we're going to fight. This street, right next to the school, and the plan is to go into like a parking lot where, we're not going to get caught fighting, right? So I go to turn around, and there's like 200 plus people behind us. Because he had been talking all this mess for weeks, right? So when he comes up, I'm sure he had been saying today's the day or whatever. So I turn around, I'm like, what is going on, right? There's all these people there. And so I was doing jujitsu at that point, and I was envisioning in my head what I was going to do, which none of it happened. But it's all in my head. But some of the stuff, because I was imagining it ahead of time, actually happened in the fight. So I got off I was small, but from swimming, all the core muscles in my stomach and everything very fast, right, for that punching motion. So I got off a bunch of hits right in the beginning. And then I'm trying to stop the fight, right? Because he goes and rubs his face, and just blood everywhere.
You were punching him in the face? Is that why?
So he rubs his face, and his face is just completely covered in blood. I'm like, it's over, dude, it's over. And he's like, oh, it's over? And he comes up and he headbutts me. Wham! Just hits me, and I come back and then just go in again, and then his friends stopped it because he was a bloody mess.
You gained something of a nickname? Is that true, or was that just Chris making things up?
No.
So your group of friends had a nickname for you, or the whole school did?
I had people that I didn't know well writing this in my yearbook.
Oh. Okay, so what were you called?
I mean, this is the age of Mike Tyson, right? So it's like they were, hey Tyson, what's that? Just things like that.
Oh, that's not what I remember hearing.
What did Chris tell you?
Drew the Killer. Is that
That
it?
is not a thing.
It's not?
No, he made that
Okay.
crap up.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm imagining like everyone calling you that. So
No, I had some people saying Tyson or like that I was a fighter now, and now the bullies of the school want to fight me because now
so
I'm
everyone's. It's like a movie.
right.
It is actually. It is absolutely like a movie.
Yeah.
So we see a little bit of a peek into Andrew as a child, not a born salesman.
Well, real
But-
quick, I got to finish with this because it's important. So now I have this reputation, right, in high school, and one of these other, gang member bullies wants to start a fight with me because of his reputation, and throws a full soda can at my back, and hits me in the back. It was at a distance, but hits me in the back with the soda can, and I turn and I walk away. And I had a bunch of the other guys who were like, "Aren't you gonna go fight him?" And I just am like, "Why? Why would I do that? That's stupid. He just wants to fight me because I just had these 2 other fights. That's not a thing. It's not what I'm doing. Both of those were in defense of myself because I was backed up against a wall and I had to. So they're cool stories. The kids love them and all of that. But I have multiple times been punched and turned and walked away. So
And I love that because that's the sign of true strength, is meekness, of knowing that you have the ability to fight or to win or whatever, and choosing not to, that your integrity is more important. So,
yeah,
and I have seen that in you over and over. What I love about your kind of early, younger childhood story is that you weren't born a salesman. At least you don't think that you were, but learned some really important skills at a very young age about rejection and about grit.
yeah,
And that even during a season of your life where you were being severely, severely ostracized and bullied, that you were able to have a sense of confidence because you, even though you were hurt in one area of your life, you were experiencing success in another area of your life that built your confidence.
Yeah.
So, and then high school, you definitely didn't ask to be friends with the popular girls, but it worked in your favor, and you didn't ask to get into fights and to essentially kind of prove yourself to the men. I don't know if we can call them men, but the high school guys around you at the time. But it, all things that I think really started building your confidence back up again when what had previously happened to you could have destroyed you.
sure.
And I think does a lot of young people that have experienced severe bullying in their youth. They take that into their adulthood and they shy away from people. They shy away from taking risks. And that definitely was not you.
Yeah.
So, and what I know about the next part of your story is that it's absolutely full of risk taking.
Yeah.
Lots of risks.